philosophical argumentation does not bring certainty. And I know for a lot of young Christians, and even for some of you seekers out there who are agnostic or whatever the case might be, you know, you're looking into scientific argumentation, philosophical argumentation, and what you're actually searching for is certainty, absolute certainty. And if my experience counts, then I'm sorry to tell you, but I don't think you're going to find absolute deductive certainty like you're looking for. I was there. I know what that's like. And it's not a fun place to be because you're searching for something that just is not there. You're not going to find 100% certainty in science. You're not going to find it in philosophy. And you're not going to find it in faith. So that might sound very, disappointing. But as we discuss this further, I hope that some of you will see why that's really not so bad. That's really not so bad. And actually, nothing in life comes with 100% certainty. And so, as you realize that more and more, these issues of faith become so much easier to handle. Alright, now why doesn't philosophy bring 100% certainty? And I can tell you it's because of the problem of skepticism. Alright, so the strongest argument that I had, philosophical argument that I had for Christianity was the cosmological argument, okay, for the existence of God. And this was basically the idea that human logic and the idea of causation necessitates a prime mover or a creator or God. Now, the proposition that human logic necessitates that is debatable itself. Alright, people are debating this all of the time. And it's actually in the last few years become, highlighted at universities and things like this. But what I want to talk about is that even if human logic did necessitate the existence of God, we cannot know that human logic is the standard for metaphysical truth. And that's a hard pill to swallow. But for somebody who is leaning very, very hard on the necessity that they see in human logic to conclude the existence of God, I would simply say to you that this still cannot avoid the problem of skepticism. And philosophers acknowledge the problem of skepticism. Many of them do not like it, but it is something which has not been overcome, especially since Hume. And David Hume. And philosophers, a lot of them really don't like the skeptical position. Even secular philosophers, many of them don't like it because they want to think that we can know things. Alright? However, it's something that they really have to, they cannot ignore because the problem of skepticism still has not been overcome. And so what the problem of skepticism means is that even though our human logic might necessitate certain conclusions, there is no way that we can possibly verify that our own human logic is the right standard. And the moment we try to offer some kind of proof that our human logic is the right standard, logical proof for that, we fall into circular reasoning, which deductive logic will not allow. So, basically, one way I like to talk about this, and one way I've talked about it before in the past, is that imagine that, imagine a cat or a dog. And let's just imagine a cat with a cat's logic, okay? And this is a thought experiment. And so just imagine that by a cat's logic, the origin of the universe must be a tasty fish. There's no other, according to a cat's logic, imagine that there's no other possibility. The universe had to come from a tasty fish. Now, would we grant that the universe came from a tasty fish? We would not. We would not. We would simply say that the cat's logic, cat logic, is not the standard by which to measure the truth about the origin of the universe. And as human beings, for all we know, the same thing may be true about our logic. So this is the kind of problem that you have with philosophy. You cannot possibly verify these things with 100% certainty. And for some people that's not a problem. But for people who are searching for 100% certainty, that's a big problem. Because you're not going to find it in science, and you're not going to find it in philosophy, and actually you're just not going to find it, is the conclusion I've come to. So you've got to settle for less than 100% certainty. So where does this leave us? Well, we need another method besides science and philosophy alone. Alright, that's not to say we cannot use them up to a certain point, but we cannot rely solely on science and philosophy, okay? Any method that we use, we're going to need human reason to some extent, because we're human beings, and this is how we go about understanding and go about acquiring knowledge, is through, largely, oftentimes through human reason. But to rely on it alone, solely, is not a good idea, in my opinion. And that's the conclusion I've come to after a long time of wrestling with these things. So we need another foundation, and Christianity teaches that the foundation is the words of the prophets, of Christ, and of the apostles. Now, a skeptic will immediately object to this by saying, oh, so you believe it simply because the Bible says it. And we hear that objection all the time, and I admit that I used to think that that was silly as well. That was just foolishness to me. That wasn't good enough for me. How can I believe it just because the Bible says it? But next time, we're going to discuss why that actually is a very reasonable method of acquiring spiritual, metaphysical truth, and how the Bible sizes up against texts from other religions. Thanks again for watching, and remember to send in your questions to seektv@gmail.com, and I look forward to answering those and responding as soon as I can.